Alaska Airlines is getting a new credit card, and it actually looks really good. So this was just announced. Alaska Airlines is getting the new Summit Visa Premium card. This is a new entry into the premium airline card segment, and it is actually one of the most competitive looking airline credit cards that I've ever seen. Most airline credit cards are not that great. We've talked about this extensively on this podcast, where most airline cards are you pay $95 for a checked bag, or you pay some, $700 a year for lounge access, and it's like there's better ways to get lounge access. And so most airline cards are uncompetitive. This looks to be a bit different. So let's dive into some of the details here. The annual fee is going to be $395. This is already interesting in and of itself because we've seen most premium credit cards, even in the airline segment, go much higher than this, pushing into the $500, $600, $700 range. And so having a card with a $400 annual fee is surprisingly reasonable, as weird as that feels to say. And so this is nice to see right off the bat. It's nothing outrageous. The original initial sign-up bonus is going to be pretty nice. So you get 5,000 bonus points just for opening the account, and then you get 100,000 extra points and a 25,000 point companion certificate. We'll talk about that in a second, after spending $6,000 in the first 90 days. So pretty standard sign-up spend requirement, really generous initial bonus, like getting 100,000 Alaska miles. Alaska miles are still very valuable. They have a lot of great redemptions, so this is great to see. And so this is a pretty interesting sign-up offer. Let's talk a little bit about what this 25,000 point, companion certificate is. So essentially, if you're booking yourself a point seat and you have a companion also on that same itinerary, you can use this certificate to book them as well up to a 25,000 point value. And this is pretty nice because assuming you were going to book for two people anyways, and assuming you can get the full value of the certificate, that's worth 25,000 points, which is quite a lot. That is a pretty good value. And you're also going to get one of these every year upon renewal, just for renewing the card. That is potentially really interesting because we already have a card that's $395, and getting a certificate that's in theory worth 25,000 points does a lot to offset the value of the card. Even if you value the points at 1 cent per point, right, that's about a $250 annual rebate. Now, it's a little bit unseen to see what this certificate, the exact functionality will be and how it works, right? Can I top it up? How does that work? Are there any weird restrictions or things like that? Because if I can't top it up, might be a bit of a problem, right? You're going to want to be able to top it up. I wouldn't be surprised if you can't, but that still leaves a lot of domestic or a lot of economy itineraries that are totally, usable in the certificate. And for me personally, I've been, most of my travel has been solo recently because my girlfriend's in medical school. And so I don't know if I'll have as much of a use for it. However, I could see a lot of people really valuing this, right? If you're going with your player two a lot of travel is done, right, in pairs of two. So this is something that can be super useful. Let's talk about the other kind of recurring perks of the card and what makes it special. So if you spend $60,000 a year on the card, you get a 100,000 point companion certificate. Now that is really interesting because that covers essentially all of the Alaska sweet spots that most people want to redeem for, including Starlux and others. And so, right, you can take, this could be a very, very valuable companion certificate. Imagine you're booking 2 Starlux tickets. Hey, that's 75,000 points basically. I would view it as up to 100,000 bonus points for spending 60K on the card, which is a not insignificant milestone, I would say. Wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to spend on the card just for that, but it is definitely something worth noting. You get 2 Alaska lounge passes and 2 Wi-Fi passes each calendar quarter. This is nice. The fact that it's broken up by calendar quarter is kind of cool. I like this. I understand, yes, it's annoying to have quarterly credits. I get they don't want to give you unlimited lounge access, but I appreciate it's not like what City's doing where it's you get 4 Admirals Club passes. At least here you're getting, 8 per year, So I like this more because it feels more substantial, and it's a pretty cheap way to get access to the Alaska lounges, compared with buying, let's say, a membership. So the next perk, pretty basic, free check bag for you and up to 6 people on same reservations on Alaska or Hawaiian. That's nothing special, right? Every other airline card does that. You get 10,000 status points on each account anniversary, and then 1 status point on every $2 spent. I'd have to dive more into the Alaska program to figure out how valuable this is. I'm assuming the status points you're kind of like tracking with like relative to what like the mileage earning was. This isn't bad, and it's pretty similar as like a boost to a lot of other premium airline cards where they'll give you some minor boost, not enough to get status, but enough to move the needle, especially if you were going to travel on the airline anyways. And it's a way to incentivize people that already are traveling on the airline to pay for this card because it just makes sense for them. $120 every 4 years for TSA pre-check or global entry. Okay, every other card provides this, nothing special. $50 voucher for Alaska Airlines flight cancellations for cancellations or departure delays of 2+ hours. I want to learn more about how this term works. This is interesting because this 2-hour voucher is a lot better than pretty much any type of insurance on any type of credit card. Visa Infinite is a 6-hour insurance policy. A lot of flight delays aren't 6 hours, let's be real. There's a lot more 2-hour delays. $50, is this going to change? Like, is this going to fundamentally alter my trip? No. Can I get a decent meal? Maybe, right? Get a little snack at the airport or something. It kind of takes the sting out of the delay. Obviously, we'll have to see, do award tickets qualify? Of course, you're probably going to have to book your Alaska fare with the card. That makes sense. I think this is a unique perk. I don't mind this. I think this is actually like, I kind of like more reasonable, like specialized insurance like this, because I think there's a lot of times flight delays, you get pissed off and you're like, I don't really want a $15 meal voucher. Like, what am I going to get with that in an airport? $50 feels a lot more substantial. There's no change fees when you need to do a same-day change on like an Alaska Airlines itinerary. So it's like $50 normally. This is, sure, I don't do a lot of same-day changes, but I guess something, right? And then one thing that's interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to misinterpret the way this is being marketed, is no partner award fees. So this does not mean you get like waived airline taxes and fees and fuel surcharges. I wish, like I would be shilling this card nonstop if that were the case. It's just that $12.50 partner redemption fee that Alaska charges for award redemptions. They will no longer charge that if you have this card. I actually like this. I don't know if they're going to like refund it to the card or how it works. I like this because I think it's interesting that you're able to get this refunded because now it makes the mileage program entirely refundable. Whereas AA is entirely refundable. Alaska's like, yes, it is, but it's like you got to pay $12 every time you cancel the flight. It's like, it's not a big deal. It's not changing the program, but it's a little annoying. And so I think this is interesting. I think it's a cool perk. And then I think it works a little bit differently on like actually Alaska, or if you're flying like Alaska Metal, where I don't know if they waive this fuel surcharges on that. It's a little unclear, but even if they do, the fuel surcharges on like Alaska operated flights won't be as substantial anyways, because most of the fuel surcharges and like other types of fees would be on other airlines. But I don't think this is indicating it's going to waive fuel surcharges. It's simply to waive like the redemption fee, if that makes sense. As far as the earning rate goes, 3x on Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian purchases. Okay. One interesting thing, though, is you do get 3x on foreign spending. That is cool. I like this. Kind of reminds me of like the US Bank Altitude Reserve a little bit, where US Bank Altitude Reserve, right, obviously there's nerf coming, but like pre-nerf, you got 3x on mobile wallet purchases. And it was a card like now I use all the time just because I do a lot of mobile wallet purchases. This is interesting because I think if you're someone that lives abroad, travels it frequently, this is going to be like your, oh yes, duh, I'm just going to use this card whenever I'm internationally, which is an interesting strategy. Obviously, I don't know if it's going to be sustainable because I think there's going to be a lot of people that make this a very expensive purchase because interchange fees internationally are lower than in the US. And so you're also going to combine that with a lot of probably like expats that live internationally that are like, hey, all I'm going to do is use this card for foreign purchases. 3x on everything is really generous. And so this is actually a great earning rate. And because it's Alaska miles, it's great. It's like, this is probably one of the few times I would say like multipliers could make a difference. I'm not saying to get this card for the multipliers, but it is actually a significant enough multiplier. I think it's like worth mentioning. And then you also do get like a 10% reward bonus on all like purchases if you have a Bank of America account, like a checking account or something. So pretty no-brainer, open a checking account. I think we've seen a lot of banks do this where they try to market people to get their checking accounts, get things that will allow them to get some specialty bonus or something like that. This is no exception. Usually Bank of America is pretty relationship biased anyways, so if you want to get this card, having a checking account with them is going to help your approval odds significantly. So my overall take on this card is this is actually a really nice, refreshing entry to see in the airline space. There's no standard credit, of course, that's going to make this a no-brainer keeper card. But I don't think it has to. I think this is a good enough card in and of itself where if you have a use case for it, it's going to pay for itself. Those 25K annual companion certificates, that could get you a pretty good way up to being able to make the card justifiable. Combine that with the insurances, the 3x multiplier, the lounge pass and Wi-Fi passes. I think this is actually a really solid airline card, and I think they've intended this to be a card that actually does make sense for most people that fly Alaska. And I don't think you have to fly Alaska with an extreme frequency to justify this card. I think there's going to be people that don't fly Alaska that much that can still justify this just because of the multipliers alone. But I think it is a card that's going to be a no-brainer for a lot of people that do frequently take Alaska flights because of the lounge passes, or even, you don't have to fly all the time, but just a couple times a year, just because of the lounge passes, just because of these insurances. So I actually really like this card. I think it's a really nice balanced card. I think it's a good refreshing entry. It should be launching around August 20th at the speculation. I want to give credit to Frequent Miler because their articles like what I used to learn about this information first, so always give the hat tip to them. But yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Alaska card in the comments down below.